We're reading the Beis Halevi on Anava. We're on 1. Haughtiness is a severe sin. Haughtiness is among the most severe sins. The Beis Halevi begins the essay with a surprising statement. Haughtiness and arrogance is a sin. We generally think of the virtue of humility and negativity of arrogance as a refined character trait and praiseworthy conduct. But is arrogance actually a sin? As the Beis Halevi states, the answer is yes. He brings an explicit source. This essay is one of the 3 unpublished essays of the Beis Halevi. The other 2 are on the topics of bitachon and avas Yisrael. Interestingly, the Beis Halevi begins of these essays with the statement, these traits are positive or negative commandments. It would seem that he is imparting a clear and essential message. True, every area of avodas Hashem is important, indeed very important. However, one must differentiate between explicit Torah commandments and praiseworthy conduct. When dealing with the Torah commandment, we must delve into it intensively, leaving no detail overlooked. Thus, perhaps the Beis Halevi devoted entire essays on these topics specifically for they are all commonly perceived, wrongly, as merely beneficial and praiseworthy, but by no means obligatory. Therefore, he states clearly that the Torah requires them. Indeed, Rav Yecheskel Levenstein has said that the reason people don't put effort into eradicating the negative traits of haughtiness is that they perceive it as merely not praiseworthy, but not as a sin. Here, the Beis Halevi adds an additional point. Not only is arrogance a sin, but it is among the most severe sins. The ways of Esav. As mentioned in the footnote, the Beis Halevi seems to maintain that one who is arrogant transgresses an explicit Torah commandment. Arrogance is as serious as one of the other 613 mitzvot. This would seem clear from the Gemara, which cites a warning from the Torah against arrogance. Indeed, the Sefer Middos Hagadol, a compilation of all the 613 mitzvos, lists the sin of arrogance among the negative commandments, rendering it an outright Torah prohibition. That is one opinion. Rav David Pardo has a different explanation. The Tosefta states that if I have a lot and I should have more. That's following in the words of the non-Jews. Rav David Pardo provides some background. When Yaakov presented gifts to Esav refused arrogantly, declaring, I have plenty. As the Rashi explains, Esav spoke with haughty language, saying, I have more than I have need of. So states Rav David Pardo. Speaking and acting arrogantly is rooted in, I do not follow in their traditions. We are exhorted not to be like them. The classic them is Esav. It is interesting to note, when I asked if hunting is permitted for sport, the Noda Beyehuda raised the possible issues of Tara Bal HaChaim, causing pain to living creatures. The Baal Tocheses, the wasteful destruction, rejects them both. He then points out that another issue with hunting for purely entertainment purposes, it is cruel and inhumane activity. He affirms, the only hunters we find in the Torah are Nimrod and Esav, not people we should be emulating. Such entertainment would thus fall into the category of following their tradition of the non-Jews. So again, Esav is the quintessentials that not what we do, we don't hunt, we don't say, I have plenty. Rather, like our forefather Yaakov, we humbly state, I have everything, meaning, as Rashi explains, all that I require. I am happy with what I have. I make do with little. So we have a new source for refraining from arrogance. No room for middle ground. Not only is arrogance a sin, but the Beis Halevi refers to it as a severe sin. Regarding all character traits, the Rambam instructs that one must always position himself in the middle of the 2 extremes. For example, though generosity is definitely a positive character trait, one must have the proper balance between generosity and stinginess. One who devotes excessive amounts of his time, money, and other resources to help others is irresponsible and may ultimately suffer unpleasant consequences. Obviously, it is wrong to be stingy and indifferent to the needs of others who need help. One must therefore learn to develop the golden mean, a proper balance, knowing what to accept and when to decline, not to give too much or too little. The same is true of most character traits. However, the Rambam writes, regarding certain negative character traits, it is forbidden to have any sort of balance. Rather, one must distance himself from these traits to the extreme. The first example is haughtiness. The Rambam writes, it is not good enough that one is merely humble. Rather, one must act with a lowly demeanor, and his spirit should be excessively downtrodden. The Torah writes about Moshe Rabbeinu that he is very humble, not just humble. Therefore, our sages have taught, be exceedingly humble in spirit. Furthermore, as sages have stated that one who is arrogant has denied Hashem's existence. Fear of sin. We can further explain why the Beis Halevi stresses the aspect of sin in these three essays, based on his own words, explaining how one can fulfill the commandment of you shall not covet. Many have wondered how this warning applies and what a person should do if his heart desires something. Desire for something is natural. If unfavorable instinct, how can we be commanded to not covet? The answer is quite simple. Each person knows himself and is clear that if somebody longs for something, the intensity of that desire varies according to his nature. If the person is also easily capable of obtaining what he covets, he pursues it. The evil inclination burns within him like a fire. However, if the path is icy, like walking on a frozen river, and his foot slips on the icy surface and he is able to fall, at that moment the fear of the fall will extinguish that burning desire and the fear he feels of the potential fall overcomes his will. Thus, the Creator, blessed be He, has established in the nature of all living beings that even the small fear that arises in a person's heart will overpower even the strong desire and longing. Therefore, once the Torah warns against coveting and prohibits it, a person with even a slight fear of transgressing Hashem's prohibition, like the natural fear of falling, will no longer covet at all. I heard from a descendant of the Beis Halevi that his son, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, said, "My father had Yiras Shamayim 24 hours a day." Rav David Soloveitchik writes that Rav Mendel of Slutsk said, "If I were judging the Beis Halevi in the heavenly court, I would not reward him for refraining from sin. He had such fear of sin, it would be impossible for him to transgress it. I would reward him for the great effort it took to reach that level of fear of sin." It is true that attaining high levels of bitachon and avas Yisrael, of Anava, and refraining from jealousy and coveting are more difficult than most people can imagine. However, to the Beis Halevi, every commandment in the Torah was by definition achievable. Due to his great fear of sin, we can try on our level to follow in his footsteps. This brings to mind the words from the Parshas Ekev and the Gemara on the Pasuk. The Pasuk states that, "Now Israel, what does Hashem, your God, ask of you? Only to fear Hashem, your God." The Gemara asks, is fear of heaven then a small matter, as the verse implies? To which the Gemara responds, yes. For Moshe, who uttered this verse, it was a small matter. He referred to it as such. To us, Yiras Shamayim is challenging. To Moshe Rabbeinu, it was not. Similarly, for the Beis Halevi, whose Yiras Shamayim was on such a high level, bitachon, avas Yisrael, and Anava were easily attainable by the mere fact that they were commandments. There is another explanation as to why the Beis Halevi begins each of his essays pointing out whether the trait at hand is either a mitzvah or an aveira. I have heard from Rav Shlomo Wolbe, who cites that Rav Yerachim Levavitz of the Yeshivas Mir, that implicit in every mitzvah or avera is the understanding that we are capable of fulfilling it. Hashem does not command us to do the impossible. Man without arms is not commanded to put on tefillin. If Hashem commanded, "You shall love Hashem your God," it means that we are capable of loving Him. Similarly, perhaps the Beis Halevi is telling us that these seemingly lofty ideas of bitachon, Avos Yisrael, and Anava are well within our grasp. Otherwise, the Torah would not have given us commandments to that effect.